following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Hello, everybody. I'm Ralph Tycho with the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, and I have the pleasure of introducing the newest offering on the network. It is Michael Duca on baseball and life. The man himself is here to join us, Mr. Michael Duca. How are you, sir?
Well, I'm somewhat trepidatious about being able to expound about life. I'm not through living one yet, but I'll try.
Okay. You have no problem with baseball, and truth be known, you really have no trouble with life. You are a Renaissance man and a mensch. How about that? A Renaissance mensch. That's I just coined that.
I will take the title of mensch with great pride. I don't know for sure what a Renaissance mensch is, but I'm sure that Ferdinand and Isabella can tell me what they are.
Okay. It has been for you a very, very hectic week. You want to just half of you is still in Arizona, half of you is on R&R in California. Your car in Arizona is working. Your truck here isn't working. What a day it's been for you.
Yeah, I got roused out of bed early this morning by my wife, who told me her car wouldn't start, and luckily an hour on a battery charger seems to have fixed that. But so I said, all right, we'll fire up the truck, and I was wrong about that too. It did not work. So now Lyft will come out and pick people up at our house, and in the hours since then, I have managed to get the truck battery replaced.
So all is complete, and the car's off and running.
Yes, I am back to being moderately powered.
Okay, that in the new age, it isn't are you gassed up, it's are you powered up.
That's especially true of the real car, because as you know, I drive a Tesla, Ralph. You've had the opportunity to try and survive my driving in that car.
I did, and you're quite the driver. We drove around Alameda, which you informed me of a great story about. I live in Alameda, have for 25 years. You have, how many years did you live in Alameda? More.
Let's see, I lived in Alameda from 1978 to 2009, so 31 years.
31 years. So we have a combined 50-odd-something years. We drove around and saw some of the historic sites of Alameda. I'm going to post some pictures of those along with this podcast. Alameda is famous for a number of things, not the least of which, on Pearl Harbor Day, you told me the story and it sticks with me, a story Charlie Silvera told you. Play on the famous Washington Park ball field in Alameda.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Played 3 future Yankees. They were playing an American Legion game or a semi-pro game, as I recall. Why don't you tell that story?
They were playing for a team called the Keneally Yankees, and Keneally's was a bar in San Francisco that sponsored the team. They played a lot of games in the Mission District and at Big Rec, and also in Golden Gate Park. But that particular Sunday morning, they were playing a team here in Alameda. Charlie was on that team along with Dr. Bobby Brown, who eventually became president of the American League, and a fellow some people have heard of by the name of Jerry Coleman, who is in 2 Halls of Fame, baseball and Marine Corps, and was much prouder of the Marine Corps Hall of Fame.
Right. And let me correct something that's been going around on the national level about Jerry Coleman. Um, his job was lost to Billy Martin, not on talent, but the fact that he went back and served in Korea. So that they were talking about, well, Billy Martin beat out Jerry Coleman. No, he didn't really beat out Jerry Coleman. Jerry Coleman was by far the better fielder. Billy Martin came up very big in the World Series as a result of all of this. But Jerry Coleman unfairly lost his job, of course, like many, Ted Williams included, who went back in the service. That was it.
Right.
But
Jerry always took great pride in the fact that he was the only member of Major League Baseball to see combat duty in 2 different wars. Ted Williams served in 2 different wars, saw combat duty in one, but was a flight instructor in the other one. But Jerry actually flew combat missions in both World War II and Korea. And he, as you said, was a pretty darn good ball player, as evidenced by the fact that he was the MVP of a World Series.
Absolutely. And again, I remember him as being just as slick a second baseman as there was. Fast hands and coming over that base at second. He was really a good ball player and a fine announcer with a host of malaprops that we could look back and laugh about.
I can regale you with Jerry malaprops for probably 20 minutes.
I think start with a few because he's worth remembering.
Well, I think one of my favorites was McCovey hits a deep drive to center field. Winfield is going back. He hits his head on the wall, and it's rolling back in towards the infield.
Right up there with Ralph Kiner and the rest of them. He was very special. And a beloved guy.
Oh, yes. Yes. I was, we were good friends. Jerry, of course, being a San Francisco native, whenever the Padres would come up, he would go on long walks in the morning. He'd walk a couple of miles on the Embarcadero usually, just to get back into the feel of his city. And he'd show up at the ballpark around 9:30 for a 1 o'clock game, and I was frequently there that early too. And we'd just sit and trade stories for maybe an hour and a half before he had to get serious about the game. He loved talking the game. He loved talking about San Francisco.
Yeah. And not only, he was loved in New York as an announcer before he went to San Diego. People lose track of that. He was trained by Mel Allen and Red Barber in New York. And he was a darn beloved guy in 3 different cities.
Yep, and he had one major advantage over the Scooter, Phil Rizzuto, who was also a beloved announcer in New York. The difference was that Terry didn't go home the minute lightning started to happen. Scooter was terrified of lightning and thunder. I mean, utterly terrified. Another old friend that we've lost in this offseason, Hank Greenwald, broadcast with the Scooter for a while, and I mean, it was so abrupt that there was a bolt of lightning that went across the sky in the outfield, and Hank commented on it and said, "Did you see that, Scooter?" and turned to his left, and the chair was empty. It was gone.
Well, I'll tell you what else he was afraid of. I'll tell you what else Scooter was afraid of, and that was bugs and insects. And in spring training, the old Yankee veterans, young guys wouldn't do that. Once he became established, you didn't mess with his glove. But in those days, they would, and they'd put insects in his glove, and he'd jump out of the building. It's
Oh, well, I
unbelievably
can imagine because, they always did, the Yankees always did spring training in Florida, still do. And, after all the residents of Florida have gone on to their heavenly reward, the last thing left standing in that state will be the palmetto bug.
Is that a red bug? Sir,
palmetto bug is essentially a giant flying cockroach.
Okay.
They're about the size of a German cockroach, which is about 2.5 inches long, maybe 3 inches long, and about half as wide. I mean, they're not the little skittery almond-shaped things that you see in your kitchen. They're kind of scary. They look like they're big enough to fillet and feed a family of 3.
Well, great stories about he'd be scared by that. So what an announcing team. The Yankees. Think about this. And by the way, Phil Rizzuto, before he became almost a caricature of himself, was a damn good announcer. He wasn't going home in the 6th inning and crossing the bridge and writing in the scorecard, wasn't watching and stuff. He was a darn good announcer and had a voice for radio and a great personality. A man who came back from being absolutely humiliated on Old Timers Day. I think it was 1956, if I'm not mistaken. They unceremoniously did George Weiss release him on Old Timers Day with all the old guys coming back in the dugout, and he's there. And he was so cool about it, and he handled it so well that a year later he was taken on as a Yankee announcer. But, you work in any work organization, if you have to swallow certain things, it sticks with you for a long time. He was a character, and I'll tell you what, you listen to his Hall of Fame speech on YouTube, and that tells you all you need to know about Phil Rizzuto.
I have not heard that speech, so I will go do that.
Yeah.
But the only thing I can say in response to the rest of it is, holy cow!
He and Harry Carey shared that. It came originally, obviously, because Carey was so much older and doing it so much longer. But I think Rizzuto stole "Holy Cow" from Harry Carey. Holy cow, that's not nice.
And you know what? I've got a Harry Carey story for you too. So tuck that away in your memory bank for later.
All right. No. Let's go to it, and then we'll talk a little life.
Oh, all right. Well, in a sense, this is a bit of life. So long before the Cubs built the beautiful Sloan Park in Mesa, they were at what most people know as Hohokam Park. It's really Hohokam is the way it's supposed to be pronounced, but nobody knows that. But they were at Hohokam Park, and Hohokam Park was renovated, I'm going to say around 2004, somewhere around there. Prior to that, they had just a kind of almost like the plywood box that John McCain was imprisoned in Hanoi for all those years. They had a plywood press box that would get to be about 113 degrees on the first warm day of spring. It didn't even have to be hot. There was no air circulation at all. And I happened to go to a game there, and my wife was with me, and she was sitting down in the stands down the right field line. And I got the last open seat in the press box, and there was the water cooler had been tipped over because there were 55-mile-an-hour winds the day before, and nobody had refilled the water cooler. There was no water to drink. there was a picnic cooler in the back that had, I think, 12 cans of soda in it, if I'm not mistaken. And there was a pitcher of water and a stack of cups. So I was there very early, as I usually am, and I grabbed myself a cup of water and sat down with it. And eventually somebody came and sat down next to me, and we got to chatting. He said, by the way, where'd you get the water? And I said, oh, from the pitcher over there in the middle of the press box. And he looked at me in absolute horror, and he said, oh, my God, that's Harry's water. Nobody touches Harry's water. I said, oh, well, I didn't know. I'll drink it and dispose of the cup. And so I did, and feeling guilty about having, apparently consumed holy water, I went down and introduced myself to Harry as the game was getting going. And Harry's seat was very strategically located at the top of the stairway. And people could climb that stairway in the stands behind home plate, and with their backs to the game, they could talk to Harry and get autographs. And basically, that's what Harry did for the entire game, was sign autographs. So that was going along fine. And at this point in his career, Harry was, well, he would have traded his eyesight for a bat happily. It was, I'm not sure that Harry could actually see the counter that he was leaning on. His glasses were Coke bottles stacked on each other. And he had trouble making out where he was supposed to write on things. And so I finally said, the easiest way to deal with this, Harry, why don't you move over one seat so that you're not right there where people can access you. And I'll take the programs in, and I'll tell you, sign this one to Mary and sign this one to Elizabeth, and
Yeah.
And so we're doing that for a while. And all of a sudden, Harry looked up and way the hell down the right field line, like in metal bleachers that were probably 30 feet from the fence, from the outfield fence. Somebody stood up in the aisle of the bleachers and started walking down, and Harry glances up and elbows me and says, "Whoa, get a load of the blonde on the right field line." Harry,
his vision comes back.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I said, "Harry, that's my wife." And without missing a beat, he says, "And what a lucky son of a bitch you are." So
how long did it take you to tell your bride this story?
It was almost instantaneous, because she was coming down the aisle because we had been texting, and she said, people around me know that you're handling autographs for Harry, and they all want autographs. And I said, you just bring everything, okay?
Right.
But that's what she was doing. She was on her way up there. So when she gets there with all the autographs, Harry reaches over and grabs a program from the press box, draws a perfect caricature of himself, only instead of eyebrows, he puts 2 carrots. They're pointed, and they're like as tall as his whole face. And he just writes, "Hey, Kelly, love, Harry." We still have that somewhere.
Wow.
That's
what a memory. I can't top that at all. It is life. It is both baseball and life. Got to get to it. We're in the Bay Area. We did a giant program together all these years. Horrible thing happens the other day with Larry Baer and his wife. And it probably cost him the CEO for good. They say it's temporary. He's taking a leave. Do you come back from that? Does anybody come back from something like that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Here's the thing. Now we're going to start talking about life. And I got some strong opinions about this, and they may or may not be popular with some people, and they may or not be scandalous to some people. But I'm going to tell you what I know, and I'm going to tell you what I believe. I've known Larry and Pam for 20 years. I have friends who have known and socialized with Larry and Pam for 30 years. I have not found one person that I have talked to who knows them who can ever remember a crossword between them, ever. I cannot find one person that I know in the organization who will tell me that they've seen him angry. Irritated, absolutely. But angry, no. And the problem is that we are so conditioned as a society by the breakdown of etiquette and societal norms and normative behavior that we are now chasing headlines, chasing scandal, the dopamine rush. We love to see the mighty brought low, and we immediately suspect the absolute worst of people, and then we move from suspecting it to being convinced of it, because if we think it, it must be so. And I am here to tell you that I can propose to you a completely plausible explanation for everything that you think you see on a cell phone video that was shot from yards away, is blown up and grainy, and was edited by a TV production company that is known for producing scandals. You have to consider the source. I'm not saying that nothing happened. Obviously something happened. But I am telling you that, at first everybody said, oh, my God, he was assaulting her, he was taking her cell phone. Then it comes out that it wasn't her cell phone. It was his cell phone. So immediately everybody changed the narrative to, oh, he must have gotten a text from his girlfriend and she found out about it. Well, you know what, Ralph? That's possible. That's very possible. 40% of people cheat in their marriages. So, statistically, there's 40% likelihood of that. But you know what's twice as likely to be the reason for that?
What?
80% of people are addicted to their cell phones. Now, what we hear from allegedly lots of witnesses is that they were having a heated discussion about a family matter for a half hour. Now, I'm going to just flat out ask you, when was the last time you had a half-hour-long argument?
No. I've had a sketchy past with women. I joke. But a half-hour argument, yeah, that could be. You could have a
half hour is an awfully long time to have a discussion about something about which you're not agreeing. And what's missing from this conversation is all of these witnesses who say they were arguing for half an hour, not one of them has come forward to say what they were arguing about, which tells me they couldn't hear them, which tells me that argument is an interpretation.
They may have just been very demonstrative,
they may have been having an animated discussion about
animated. That is exactly the word I'm looking for. They may have been animated
discussion. You're having an animated discussion in public. You're a recognizable person. Okay?
Yeah.
And in the midst of that conversation, your phone rings. And if you're Larry, you take your phone out of your pocket and you look at it and you say, I've got to take this.
Oh, that pisses off the wife, of course.
And so the wife, how about this? How about she reaches over, grabs the phone, and says, no, pay attention to me for a change.
Right.
You've been on the phone
I
for 14
could well
days.
imagine that.
You've been on the phone
or if it were reversed, it would piss off the husband. Anybody who's in, is having a conversation, doesn't want to be interrupted by a phone. No question about that.
Well, and how about this? How about if he had answered the call but hadn't been able to talk on it, and she pulls the phone away from him, and now people on the other end can overhear what's going on but don't know what's going on. And so he's saying, come on, Pam, give it back to me. Come on. Now.
Right, but I did happen to see the tape, firsthand when it came out.
Okay, but let me ask you a question before you tell me what you see on the tape. Have you read her statement fully?
Not fully. I heard a blip that she says, I've loved my husband for 38 years. I adore him. No. I'm going to tell you right now, the one guy who's got this right that I've seen in the media, in my opinion, is Tim Kawakami of The Athletic. And Tim said the video is an ink blot. What you see in that video tells you more about you than it does about them. Because what her statement said, and I'm paraphrasing it, but this is very close to the reality, is she said, I took Larry's cell phone. He asked for it back. I didn't want to give it to him, and that was wrong. He tried to get it back. I started to stand up, lost my balance, put my weight on a foot that I had injured 2 days before, and fell. I was not injured. Yeah, that's logical
Larry.
to me. He never pushes her in that thing.
And here's the thing that everybody says. Everybody says, oh, no, he's a big, strong man. And he's really kind of skinny, but he's a big, strong man, and he pulled her out of the chair. Well, Pam is a normal American woman. She probably weighs 140 pounds, give or take, maybe a little more, maybe a little less. I want you to take 140 pounds of dead weight and try and pull it out of a chair by a cell phone. And I'm here to tell you, if you're starting to get pulled out of the chair, are you going to let go of the phone, or are you going to keep a death grip on it and get pulled to the ground?
Right. And to his credit, if you could say, he was trying to disengage by walking away. I think.
Absolutely. I mean,
and that's the first thing in anger management that they teach.
Absolutely, is walk away. And now he's being excoriated for walking away. And if he didn't walk away, everybody would excoriate him because you're supposed to walk away. This is the catch-22. When you are well-known, you are guilty until proven guiltier. It's just the way our society is now.
Yeah,
now, please.
I see it.
Mark
I didn't
my
see
words
him
carefully. I'm not defending him. I'm not saying I know what happened. I'm just presenting what to me is the most plausible scenario for what people are seeing on an edited video that presents what TMZ wants you to see.
Right. But was the first reports when it came out, it was on CNN, breaking in, had the video
TMZ had it
by then?
Yes, TMZ got the video. It was sold to them. They purchased the exclusive rights to use it, which right off the bat tells you something about the guy who filmed it, or woman.
Right.
That
but who does the editing?
Wasn't so much that it was TMZ does the editing. And believe me, you can edit video on a phone in seconds. You notice that the video is chopped into two pieces. You see the event, and then you see him walking away. But you don't see him disengaging. You don't see people coming over to her assistance. Now, here's the problem. Here's the issue.
I didn't see anybody but those two in the video.
Yeah.
There
was a second piece that they showed that shows him walking away from the plaza. And
yes, and that's all. But those were the only two individuals that I saw on that.
Well, and everybody assumes that he just walked away without helping her in any way, shape, or form. And from what I've heard,
but I thought that was good that he was walking away.
Yes, and there were a few minutes between those two occurrences, which is also a good thing because he knows he's verifying that she's all right. The problem with the video, and the thing that Tim Kawakami points out, he said, you're not going to forget that scream. Oh, my God, help me. Well, I'm going to give you 3 equally possible reasons that someone could do that. And first, I'm going to preface this by telling you that there is a branch of psychology that labels people in sort of one of 2 camps: general personality types, neurotic or histrionic. Neurotic types are like you and I. We obsess over some things and we worry about stuff and we are concerned with outside influences. Histrionic.
Well, who isn't neurotic then? What's the, where does neurosis come in?
It's not. Don't think of it that way. I'm trying to explain to you how they make these divisions. One is more outer directed. One is more inner directed.
Okay.
A histrionic person is on stage. That's a good way to put it. Okay, they're out there, and so their physical motions are bigger, and they are, they always view things in terms of how it affects them before they view it in terms of how it affects others.
They're affected perhaps more than affected.
Well, yeah, and I don't want to get too deep into this because I'm not an expert on this by any stretch of the imagination. I just want to say that there are people who internalize and people who externalize. Maybe that's the best way to put it. And we don't know. I don't know which of those Pam Bear is. But if she's one of those people who externalizes, then raising your voice, crying out, screaming comes much more naturally. It's a natural reaction. It's not an unnatural reaction. And that's my only point here, is to say that. Now, given that basis, you're standing up to get out of a chair in a confrontational situation, you lose your balance and you start to fall, and you scream, "Oh my God, help me." You don't have time to say, "Oh my God, help me, I'm falling," because you've already fallen by then.
Right.
That's one possibility, right? You agree that that's a viable
Absolutely. Absolutely plausible.
Here's a second one. You're standing up to get out of a chair. You put your weight on a foot that was injured. It hurts like hell. You yell, "Oh my God, help me," and fall down. Plausible?
Plausible, and for those who take the time to think about it, it's almost more than plausible, possible, and maybe probable.
Okay.
But for all the people that stop to think about it, you and I have put more thought into it than the combined populace of Cucamonga. Would you say?
Probably, and that's Rancho Cucamonga, but yes.
I know, but I'm thinking Jack Benny all the time.
Yeah, I know. Cucamonga. Yeah, but now here's the third possibility. Also plausible, also very believably in the realm, and that is that she was genuinely in fear for her safety and in fear of Larry. I want to acknowledge that possibility is out there. I'm not trying to whitewash this. I'm not trying to defend anything. I'm simply saying those things, I think any rational person who takes a step away and looks at the evidence in front of them, you can say those things are possible. They are maybe even likely, and they're not even mutually exclusive. It can be that you started to stand up, stood on your foot, felt the pain, fell down, screamed, "Oh my God, help me," and saw somebody looming over you, and then you were fearful for your safety. I mean, all of those things can be so.
How much credence will the 25 people on the board of directors, how many partial owners are there? Maybe 30. Right?
There's a management committee of 5, which is now 4 because Larry's part of it.
Oh, okay. But aren't there? Don't they take advice from the other part owners? Aren't they consulted in it? Or?
Generally speaking, the way most boards work that I have worked with in my consulting days, Ralph, if they appoint a management committee, the rest of the board, as a general rule, is happy to offload the difficult decisions to them and just rubber stamp them.
Okay.
But here's what's going to happen. He stepped away, I think, at the behest of the board. I have no knowledge of this. This is a guess on my part. I think that the board told him it would be a good idea, and I think Larry agreed with him. And I think the reason that they think it's a good idea is, to a certain extent, out of sight, out of mind. Right? You're not a constant irritant. You're not constantly reminding people of this, because Major League Baseball has a process that they will go through. They will investigate this. And what is potentially the worst possible outcome, Ralph? You tell me. What is possibly the worst possible outcome here?
A year suspension?
No. The worst possible outcome.
The worst.
Major League Baseball. The worst possible outcome is Major League Baseball says, we've investigated it, we find it to be a one-time incident, and it's closed.
Oh, okay.
And the reason it's the worst possible outcome is because everybody will say it's a whitewash.
That's what you meant.
And I think that I just, I don't know anything. I don't know anything. I haven't talked to anyone. I don't know anyone, and I'm not privy to any inside information here. But just looking at it from an outsider and trying to be logical and non-emotionally reactive to this.
What's amazing is talking about he's the most successful executive in the last 20 years. He and McGowan, what they did with their own money and how they made it go, and they not only did they build a gym, they marketed a gym. They didn't. I mean, it was absolute. And they rescued the team to do it. All those things has to play into it. The guy just too good at what he did.
Well, and I'm gonna point out another thing. Everybody. I mean, I cannot tell you how many posts I've seen on social media of people who say, "Well, if he did this in public, he's just beating the hell out of her at home." Really? Really? So, you don't know these people, but you know enough to make this pronouncement based on what? Your own personal experience of beating someone at home?
Right.
I mean, we're down to the classic question: when did you stop beating your wife? Right?
And to think you could go 38 years and not have an argument is
Ralph. The possibility that someone who has spent 30 years in the public eye, who runs a charity, who goes to the black and white ball, who goes to the opening of the opera, who goes to the opening of the symphony, who goes to the opening of the ballet every year and is photographed every year, you cannot wear 30 years of strapless gowns and hide bruises.
Right.
You just can't.
That's very pragmatic.
Nobody is so controlled that they can only be abusive when they know they've got 3 weeks for things to heal before they're going to be in public. Nobody's that controlled.
Nobody has that. Nobody thinks in those terms. When faced with the things that make them react like they react,
exactly.
You're not thinking rationally anyway. You're not going,
exactly.
I am so mad at you, but you know what? We got 2 months to that coming out party for your daughter, so that kind of thing.
Yeah. So boy, I'll take it out on you afterwards, and I'll hold on to my mad for a while. That's not human nature.
Yeah. No, it isn't.
I mean, now we really are talking about life, because that's just not human nature.
And again, we are assuming that anything physical took place. This was merely an exchange of phones type thing. They weren't hitting each other.
I just, Ralph, when there's homicide, there are forensic experts who come out and they can tell you that, the victim was sitting in a chair and the entry wound and the angle of the entry wound tells you that the person who shot them was between 6'1" and 6'2". I mean, they can tell you that, okay?
Right.
So how do they know that? They recreate it. Okay, so I would like somebody who's convinced that this is an absolute travesty of justice if he doesn't get drawn and quartered. I would like somebody to take a 160-pound man and a 140-pound woman, sit one of them in a chair, have the other one stand a foot away from the chair, reach all the way across that person's body, and then try to pull them out of the chair that they are standing perpendicular to. Just think about the physics, because that video was shot from yards away, and it was blown up digitally, which makes it pixelated, so it's blurry. It's really not sharp like you would expect a phone video to be. I mean, for God's sake, they shoot movies on iPhones, so it can be sharp as that. So it was digitally blown up, and that the person shooting it was far away because that's what he had to do to make it visible. And you can't really tell if he's trying to put an arm out and pull her out of the chair, if he's trying to put an arm out and just grab the phone, if he's behind her and pushing her out of the chair. You can't really see it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
and it is entirely possible that the worst that people think is what happened. It is entirely possible. I am not saying that it's not. I'm not saying that it is. I'm saying that we are, as a society, and I think the events of the last 2 years politically in this country have done nothing but make this worse. As a society, we are in a hell-bent for leather rush to judgment.
Mm-hmm. Boy, but, these first impressions, I'm just saying, my first question, can he overcome it? And,
I think he can. I think if Major League Baseball says, this, we've looked into this incident. We've talked to people who've known them for years and years and years and years. We've interviewed their children. We see no evidence that this is part of a pattern of behavior, and therefore we're going to ask Larry to undergo 50 hours of anger management counseling and 200 hours of community service, or whatever. I mean,
will that be enough to satisfy the other board members?
Oh, yes. That'll be enough to satisfy the board members. It won't be enough to satisfy the strident people in the public who've already convicted him. Nothing will.
Okay.
Nothing will.
Then, I wonder if it will be enough to satisfy the board members, because they're putting him at the head of their product, and if there are
You know what I think, Ralph? I
that?
think the strident people who've already convicted him are not consumers of the product in the first place.
Okay. Well, they certainly need to take a deep breath and consider, anybody who is a Giant fan need to consider what he and like I say, Peter McGowan did for the Giants, did for the franchise, did for the city.
Yeah, I mean, let's put it this way. I know that these are not equivalent. I don't want people showing up at my door with firebrands and pitchforks. I know these are not equivalent. But my recollection is that Peter McGowan, while CEO of the Giants, oversaw the management side of a very disruptive butcher's strike at Safeway. That didn't seem to bother anybody.
Yeah,
and, there are people in this country who are as devoted to the cause of organized labor as they are devoted to the cause of equality and fairness and safe life for everybody in the country, and in particular, women and people of color and others who our society has tended to oppress, has tended to abuse.
No question about that.
I mean, I can tell you this. What is today? This is 2018, right?
Yes.
So I've been with my wife for 29 years.
No, actually, this is 2019, isn't it?
Yeah, right. So I've been with my wife for 29 years.
You missed it by a year.
I can do the math, even though I don't know what year it is.
Okay.
And in 29 years, I mean, everyone should be so fortunate. In 29 years, I think I have raised my voice maybe 3 times. Maybe. And if you asked me what it was about, I couldn't tell you. I think she's raised her voice maybe once. Neither of us has ever or will ever raise a hand to the other. But that's not the way most people live. Most people, as my first marriage would attest to you, most people have profound disagreements from time to time. And most of those disagreements are over one of 2 things.
Money and sex.
Money and time spent with the family.
Oh, okay.
People don't usually disagree all that much about sex, Ralph. They either are happy about it or they're not happy about it, but it's such a convoluted subject and such a shame-producing subject in our society. That
and how much of it is channeled to other disagreements and
exactly.
This, that, and the other thing. We're both not psychologists.
And that's why I mean you will if you talk to most married people and ask them about infidelity, they will tell you it's not the act that bothers me, it's the fact that someone outside my marriage is getting their time and their emotional attention.
Right.
Not the sex that bothers them near as much as the emotional attention.
No, a lot of them are just as happy. Let somebody else, do the laundry.
So to speak. Yeah.
We are, and I'm a good example, up until very recently in my life, we are creatures of ill-fitted relationships. And nobody ever teaches you in school how to go about it. There's no courses. It's just very difficult. It's in the same realm.
It is. And Neil Sedaka said it very well almost 40 years ago. Breaking up is hard to do.
Yes. I saw Neil Sedaka play at, I went to my girlfriend's senior prom. I was a year older, Newtown High School senior prom. and we went to Jack Something's International Club. I was 18. She was 17. And we saw Neil Sedaka, a Brooklyn boy, a Jewish boy from Brooklyn, who was very, very entertaining. Schmaltzy, but entertaining.
Yeah, I can't help
Getting off
but
the
wonder.
subject of the Bears and not to make
Yeah,
light of what they're going.
I can't help but wonder, Ralph, how many people who are outraged and up in arms over this, how many of them, I don't know, have committed felonious acts themselves without realizing it or without thinking about it.
Or who know they did it.
17-year-olds who have sex are committing a felony. The level of violence that we saw on the tape does not rise to felony level, in my opinion, and I don't think it will in the police's opinion either. It might be misdemeanor level.
You see an R. Kelly tape on CNN today, an interview, where this guy is going absolutely ballistic. He is accused of 5 or 6 women girls under 14, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And this seems to get almost as much play, or it did when it first came out. I wish him the best. I wish the Giants the best. It puts them in a position of having to make a decision, and that's never good.
It's been a very, very, very difficult off-season for the franchise.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Mr.
we've
Mack.
lost Hank Greenwald. We lost
Willie Mack.
Peter McGowan. We lost Willie McCovey. We lost Frank Robinson. They fired their general manager. They went through the whole selection process. Farhan comes on board, and now the guy who hired him and the guy who he worked for isn't there.
Yes.
The whole thing with Larry, I mean, it's just been one thing after another, almost nonstop. You
to
feel
say nothing of putting Bochy in a lame duck position.
right, and you feel like to take you back to your youth, you feel like Carmen Basilio out there.
Yeah.
Remember him?
Oh yes.
Bayonne, the Bayonne bleeder.
No, he wasn't the Bayonne bleeder. Webner was the Bayonne bleeder.
Chuck Wepner came well after him, but all I remember is, as a kid growing up, it seemed to me like I watched the Friday Night Fights, and every other week it seemed like Carmen Basilio was on there, and he'd win a split decision, that he couldn't even see the referee because he had mouses over both eyes.
Right. I remember a color picture of him in Sport magazine that I cut out. And my goal in those days as a kid, with very few interests, but getting autographs. I'd get these color pictures and have players sign them as they came into New York. And I remember thinking, how the hell am I going to get a boxer to come in? I mean, he's very unlikely to be, for me to be getting Carmen Basilio's autograph. But it was a great, great picture. And yes, Chuck Webner was the Bayonne bleeder. But hey, I hate to end this on a down note. It was a great first edition of Michael Duca on Baseball and Life, and we did go through it. It's all part of life.
Well, we did, and all I can say on the main subject of the day is whatever you feel when you see that video is valid, and however you think is also potentially valid but we entrust our system of justice to professionals, and I would just suggest to people that they wait until they know everything that's available to be known before they make their judgments.
With not just this case, with every case, it shouldn't be tried in the public eye, just like in Europe, in England in particular. It doesn't. A plaintiff and a defendant, they don't go through the public eye before the trial. The trial isn't tried in the public eye. It's tried in the courts, and then it's discussed. And it can't even be discussed beforehand, as far as I know. And that would be a breath of fresh air for our justice system, I'm thinking.
Yeah, it's difficult enough. I mean, public opinion has its place. Public opinion basically is how the Supreme Court moves. But at the same point in time, I just, I can't say it any more plainly. Don't rush to judgment. It winds up being less embarrassing in the long run if you don't.
Okay. With not just Larry Baer, with anything.
Absolutely.
And for the same time, don't be judgmental. Jesus, if you believe in Jesus, or if you don't believe in Jesus, had a parable about judge not be judged, or whatever.
Judge not lest ye be judged harshly.
Okay, and that was Jesus that said that. Am I correct?
I wasn't there.
Okay,
but
neither was
I think it's attributed to him.
But you get a Jew boy and an Italian talking about it, you got something there. That's good podcast. Thank you, Michael. This was a good one. Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. We'll do it again real soon, next week. How about that?
All right, maybe by next week we'll know more, and who knows, my mind might have moved in a whole different direction by then, if I can even find it.
And by the same token, we'll talk a little spring training. You can tell me what your opinion is, and I'll ask you this. Is there a chance that they can sign Adam Jones, the Giants?
Oh, I think there's a chance that they can. I don't know if they have the appetite.
Okay.
It is my feeling. I think first thing you have to do when you look at the Giants is you have to throw out the whole Bryce Harper thing. That was a rare target of opportunity that showed some interest, and so they played it out. Mm-hmm. I honestly don't think that. I think that Scott Boras was doing that for leverage more than anything else. I don't think that there was a genuine possibility of him signing here, because if there was, state taxes is not the issue. It's not the hill you want to die on, because it's pretty easy to fix, and they're not permanent. And the difference between California and Pennsylvania is lessened dramatically when you add in Philadelphia City income tax. So, that was a red herring issue to me. There were other reasons, and I think one of them is that he cares about his legacy as a baseball player, and therefore he's going to go to a very, very hitter-friendly park where he can possibly look at 13 years of averaging 40 home runs a year.
Well, I'll see that when I believe it, of course.
Well,
it's a long time to get ready every year. When you're a millionaire, you have more money in your life than you'll ever need. It's hard to be motivated to play at that level for so long.
We'll see. We'll see. What I think tends to happen, Ralph, if you think about it, is that the guys who start to lose their motivation due to age look up and say, well, I'm 60 home runs from this milestone, or I'm 105 RBIs from that milestone. And, at the end of his career, what was the most important thing to Barry Bonds?
That home run record.
No, 3,000 hits.
Getting a win? Getting a ring?
3,000 hits.
Oh.
And he didn't make it.
Oh. Well, they only walked him 3,000 times.
Exactly. But the 3,000 hits was the most important thing to him. And that's why he wanted to come back and play one last year. I think he was like 58 hits short or something like that. I'm probably very wrong about that, but I know he was within striking distance of 3,000. And so with all the money in the world and all the success in the world and the home run record and more MVPs than anybody on the planet, there was still something to motivate him.
Very interesting. Let's see what motivates Bryce Harper. And
yep. And
to
again. Answer your question was about Adam Jones. So let me just take that one step further. So you kind of have to discount the Bryce Harper thing because he's a generational talent. You don't get very many 26-year-old free agents, let alone 26-year-old free agents with his potential. So how you deal with that as opposed to how you deal with everybody else are two different things. And I just don't know that the Giants have the appetite for a 34-year-old outfielder at this point. I think they want to find out if Steven Duggar and Chris Shaw and Mac Williamson and Austin Slater are major league players or not.
Hey, I'm not asking you to be Nostradamus, but could Mike Trout be on their radar next year?
2 years.
2 years.
It's 2 years from now.
Oh.
Yeah, and I'm hearing rumors. I have not confirmed these, and I haven't talked to anybody with the team, but I'm hearing rumors that the Angels are preparing a 10-year, $400 million extension offer.
$400 million. Oh my God.
Well, if anybody is worth that kind of money.
Oh, I'm not saying he's not by today's standards, but oh my God, nonetheless. If you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Trout is the closest thing to Mickey Mantle and Willie Mays that any of us will see in our lifetimes.
Right, and they may be remembering him long after they've forgotten Mays and Mantle.
Yeah, so that's a whole different issue. But would the Giants have interest in him? Absolutely. But the question becomes, what do these guys want to do? We've already had not one but two instances of Bryce Harper saying that he was going to call Mike Trout and tell him to come to Philadelphia in 2 years. And we know that Trout grew up in Philly, and he grew up a Philly fan. He grew up in Jersey, in Camden.
Now, is that tampering in some manner?
Well, that's an interesting question. The Union and Major League Baseball were both kind of scratching their heads over it. It wasn't tampering when LeBron said he wanted Dwayne Wade to come to Florida.
Well, that's true.
I don't know. Maybe he didn't say it till he was a free agent. I don't know. I don't know any of this. You've got all the rumors of LeBron drafting his all-star team because he packed it with people he wants to bring to Los Angeles next year. Who knows?
Right.
Who knows? But I don't think, whether it's tampering or not, I don't think there's any secret that teams are going to be interested in Mike Trout.
Oh, who wouldn't be? It would behoove the Angels to simply extend him and not put him out.
It would. But under the rubric of who wouldn't be interested in him, wasn't he drafted something like 13th?
Good point. It's a crapshoot.
And 9 teams passed on Tim Lincecum, and 4 or 5 teams passed on Buster Posey.
Boy, I remember how close they came to trading Tim Lincecum to Toronto, I think it was. It was an outfielder for Toronto, and it didn't go through. right before he gelled. So sometimes the best trades made are the trades that are never made.
Yeah, absolutely.
All
right.
Thank you, Michael. Great show.
Talk to you soon.
What a debut. Michael Duca on Baseball and Life. I'm Ralph Tycho of the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, and I am kvelling. That means I'm very proud, Michael. Adios, everybody. Thank you for listening.
All right. Thank you.
The proceeding was a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production. Thank you for listening.